Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Do you have an app idea that you've been dreaming about but don't know how to actually start building it? Use Bubble. I've been using Bubble for a number of years now. It's an extremely powerful no-code platform that enables you to build, launch, and scale real products without investing thousands of dollars on engineers, designers, or spending time trying to code it yourself. Use Bubble's visual drag and drop tool to create really anything from marketplaces, SaaS products, and so much more. Join over 2 million people, including myself, already using Bubble to launch and grow businesses. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Tim Liu. He's the CTO and co-founder of Hillstone Networks. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing at Hillstone Networks is actually really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into all that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
I grew up in China, so
Very cool.
I actually moved over to United States after I graduated from my college. So I started my PhD study here.
Okay, so what did you take in university and why?
I was majoring in physics, both of my undergrad and also graduate study.
Okay.
The period I was in college was in 1980s, and the computer was just starting to come up, but it's not a big major yet. So that's the reason why I got into physics.
Okay, was there something that got you passionate about physics at an early age?
It's actually during the my PhD studies. Actually, I was in a cross discipline between physics and computational math. You probably heard about the chaos theory. Studying of complex systems, things like that. So try to use complex system to model physical systems. So I actually got into neural networks at that time, very early on.
Wow.
But I never thought I could use any of those actually in my actual job in computer. But that's an interesting twist.
Okay, very cool. So you get out of school. Walk us through your journey up until Hillstone. Maybe some highlights along the way because you've done a ton of stuff.
Okay. So basically, after school, when I graduated, my PhD degree, it was around 92 and 93, and this was actually an economic downturn at that time. One of the major project, the superconducting super collider, the major project in Texas, that one got canceled. Along with a lot of postdoc jobs and everything, so I got into computer science because of my a lot of computer time I spent on the PhD work, and later on I went to Intel and helped them work with Microsoft on Windows 64 for a period of time. Later on I moved on to a couple of startups around the year 2000, and after year 2000 I joined NetScreen, which is my first security job.
Okay, so walk us through your security career up into coming up with the idea and co-founding Hillstone Networks.
Okay. So NetScreen was actually doing, building network firewalls based on ASIC chip, and NetScreen eventually got acquired by Juniper. And I was doing, basically I was leading the VPN development in both NetScreen and Juniper. So around the year 2006, so at that time, I think me and a few of my colleagues, decide to come out and found a new company. And one of the things at that point is actually coming out of UTM technology, which is combining of different security functionality into one box, like antivirus, IPS, and that actually slowed the system down a great deal. And at that point, there's a new technology coming out, which is multi-core processors, industrial strength in multi-core processors, and we thought that could accelerate the application security, the AVs and IPSs, and we come out with the probably one of the first multi-core processor-based appliances in the world.
Interesting.
And that's the start of the Hillstone.
Sorry, what I missed that last thing. What was that?
That was the start of Hillstone Networks.
Okay, got it. Okay, so walk us through that early version. So how did you come up with the idea, and what made you actually decide to go for it and leave a job?
Okay. The technology-wise, UTM is a good direction. The security is getting more complex, and there's a lot of different functionalities. And UTM is a way to put all those security functionality into one device, so that it's easier for user to manage.
Right.
It's a good concept, but at that point, most of the appliances have a very small CPU inside, and once you turn on all the security functionalities, the performance drops tremendously. So that's where the multi-core processors can help. So what we did was we come up with a device that have these multi-core processors that's up to like 32 cores, each with like 2 gigahertz. So it has a lot of computation power, which helps the application security processing. And so the UTM performance get boosted. And with the pickup of people accepting UTMs, and together with our business also pick up.
Okay, so did you raise money to start this company? Because doing hardware is not cheap, especially back then.
Yes, we are venture VC funded.
Okay, so walk us through the journey of Hillstone to what it is today, because you guys have been around a very long time.
Yes, we have been mostly focusing on the Southeast Asia market, in Asia, and recently in the Latin market.
Okay.
So
why is
technology-wise, yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but why is that?
Actually, me and a few of my colleagues' background is actually in China. So we actually, a lot of the development team is actually in China.
Okay.
So, yeah. So the maybe like 70-80% of business today is in mainland. About the other part are mostly in Latin America and also in Southeast Asia.
Okay, interesting. So what made you go after that market originally? Just connections, but like
it's also the market are less developed.
Okay.
And there's less major competition in that region.
Interesting. Okay, so I think this is actually really good advice, because you're located in Silicon Valley, correct?
Yes.
And so obviously I think it's really interesting because you're building a product for, well, your majority of your clients are completely outside of North America. And I think sometimes as startup founders, we forget about that maybe we want to build something for America, maybe we want to build something for another part of the world for the reasons you just outlined, because competition and whatnot. So keep going, sorry.
Yes. So basically product, usually the product wise is mostly, it doesn't have any major differentiation from one country to the other. For example, we play with most of the other competitors I probably heard of, like Checkpoint, Palo Alto Networks, Fortinets. Wherever we meet them, the functionality-wise, the product are mostly the same.
Okay.
But in terms of company strategy, there's always where do you want to start setting? Where can you get the most acceptance? And that's where we found that the China was the better place to start. We can get channels at more acceptable to our products rather than some of the other big players. Simply because the market is less congested.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So how has the technology evolved in, the 16 plus years you guys have been around?
Yeah, it has evolved tremendously. First of all, I think the security market always driven by several forces. One of the forces is the technology development. So with the appearance of IT development, IT technology development like cloud, mobile devices, IoTs, those new technology also generates security needs. Okay. So the other trend, the other side of things is development of security itself. For example, there's new threats coming out. There's like APTs. Nowadays, it's ransomware. So different kind of threats also coming out. So those two forces actually driving the security technology development. So we are very closely following that trends. So, for example, we have after we come up with this multi-core processor UTM, we also follow the cloud trends. So nowadays we have cloud security products to deal with IoT threats. We have functionalities in our firewalls that actually help identify IoT devices and manage security on IoT devices, things like that. So all these different trends, different forces actually driving the technology development as well.
Got you. Okay. So walk us through who's your ideal customer and how do they actually leverage your technology in their organization?
That's our market segment are pretty broad. Mostly
Okay.
we focus on medium to large enterprises.
Okay.
Small to not the very low end, but small, medium to up to very large enterprises. So some of our biggest market segments are like financials, banks, educational institutes like universities, governments. We have internet companies, and mostly general enterprise. Every enterprise will actually have security needs like firewalls, IPSs. So we actually help them with those products. And the other thing I would want to say probably is the way that we do our security, the sort of our philosophy. That's probably a different question. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on that?
So I think one of the trend is that the security getting fairly complex.
Sure.
Basically today the enterprise have getting overwhelmed with all these threats, right? Trying to dealing with data leaks, you're trying to deal with ransomware. So they keep buying different kind of products, try to plug holes. That's good to a certain extent, but also making your network very complex. So there's a few things that we help enterprises do. One is we have a methodology called See, Understand, Act. So the first part is see. So we basically help you see what's going on. So all our products have visibility building. So we help you look at what's inside your network. You can see who's using what application. You can see the threats as they come in. You can see what are the high risk assets versus low risk assets, and you can concentrate on the high risk ones. So the second part is understand. So we also collect some forensic evidence like packet captures, things like that. So once you have a certain security incident, you can come back and better see what's going on, what actually caused it. The last part is act is basically help you deal with it, deal with the incident either by blocking certain IP or certain sites, or by throttling your traffic so that people can upload their file fast enough, things like that. So it's the kind of things like a methodology that we follow that help you deal with the sort of the complex environment you have.
Okay, interesting. So how do like my team of people would get your software and then kind of monitor and then just like is there training involved or how complicated or how much onboarding is there to actually get this thing set up and running, at my enterprise or my university or whatnot?
Okay, so actually the company has a slew of different products. Um, so let me just give maybe two examples. So one is the basic firewall. So it used to be that the firewall is a black box. So you put in the firewall
Right.
inside your network and configure a few policies and forget about it. But nowadays, what the firewall can do is also let you see what is going through it.
Right.
What kind of applications go through it, which IP or which user is going through it, and what kind of data are they generating, or what kind of traffic are they generating? Are they uploading a lot of files, things like that? So it can help you make decision of what activity is suspicious or illegal, according to your company policy. So that's the part where the newer firewall can do. There's also another product called the XDR, which is short for Extended Detection and Response. What it is actually either a device or software system that actually collecting all the events generated from all the other devices. For example, you have maybe 10 different devices from 10 different vendors, and it's actually hard to go into each of them to look at what's going on. So this product will get all the information from those devices and be able to give you a picture of, maybe all these devices, all these security devices will all collect security information from a certain server. And this collection, this XDR can actually display a sort of a summary picture of what is going on in your network and be able to point you to the hotspot, so to speak, in your network.
Got you. Okay. So how does this all play into, obviously some people are back in the office working, some people are remote, a bit of both. How does this all tie in? Because that's adds a lot more complexity from a security perspective when kind of people are all over the map and using company devices, their own devices, and kind of everything in between.
That's a very good question. So this part only talks about the collection of the information, but on the other part of the story is you have to be able to touch all the new endpoints, so to speak. So we have products, we have endpoint products that actually a small piece of software will be installed into either your remote laptop or your IoT devices or your server, maybe some virtual machine on this on Amazon, things like that. So those small piece of software will be able to collect information and feedback into this bigger system. So those are we call sensor, endpoint sensors or network sensors that are actually collecting information. So they are definitely an important piece of the puzzle.
Got it. Okay. So obviously it probably depends on company size and what I'm looking to do, but is there like a rough range of how quick I could have something up and going? Obviously, if it's more software based, it could be probably a lot quicker than if it's a hardware software kind of combination, or does it really depend on my needs?
Um, Different products probably is different. So our firewalls is probably mostly dropping replacement for the other network security devices. So a firewall need a point probably on your perimeter.
Right.
So that deployment wise, probably I would say probably a few hours.
Okay.
Software components, some software products probably takes around, I would say, maybe a day because
Okay.
of all the information you would need to collect from different points. So it's probably a process where you need to prepare your environment first, right? So what do you
Right.
want to see? So what information do you want to collect in this system? And do some planning first, and then install this software and do all the collections.
Got you.
The
And
system itself can run itself. Yeah.
right. And then I would assume that you'd help with companies or organizations with that if needed.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So I'm curious. I think obviously I think majority of people at this point would say security is super important to their organization and arguably even personally. But where, and I think a lot of people or companies don't even know where to start. So,
Mhm.
what's your best advice to a company to kind of get going into the security space and actually care about this stuff? Because you mentioned earlier, like there's way more ransom attacks, people are getting hacked more, and like it
Mhm.
seems to be a lot more common.
Mhm. I think from different levels, you probably hear different things.
Okay.
From the IT people or from the security people, of course, those people are very educated. But you probably can't believe a lot of the employees, regular employees, are probably not so knowledgeable about hacking. They probably know the risks, but they don't know the common practices. For example, phishing is today's the largest, is the biggest risk to the corporation in terms of how the new threats are coming in. But when you try to do a phishing campaign, try to test the company, there's still a large percentage of a company employee will want to click on that email, even though it
Right.
looks suspicious. So I think first of all, I think from a company point of view, you need to educate your employee constantly on what is the latest new kind of attacks, what to look for in your daily activity, including emails, including some websites you probably visit, what to do and what not to do. I think the training is probably first and foremost. The security part or security operation part, I would say follow the best practices. And some of the latest trend is go beyond the layer defense and try to focus on what we call the post breach, because a lot of effort has been putting in defend the network. But today, because of the all these moving objects, moving employees, mobile devices, there may be threats already in your network. So you have to be prepared to respond. So put more emphasis on getting a better response plan to the attack.
Okay. Interesting. Is there some good simple things that companies could do that you'd recommend? Like it seems like a lot of people just don't even know where to like start at a basic level.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I would say simplify. You can say three things. First is get your employees well educated. Have some
Okay.
seminar. Tell them
Sure.
what are the common things to not do. And second thing is network hygiene. Install, do some best practice. Install AV. Don't allow extraneous device onto your network. Have basic network hygiene. And third is have a good response plan. What
Okay.
happens if, for example, your ransomware got in? So you have to have good backup plans, a good way of dealing with common kind of attacks.
Got you. Okay. So I'm curious, how do you and the team stay up on the trends? Because this stuff is moving so fast, and we both know that actually implementing some of these new features in code, can take a while. So how do you know and stay kind of current and make sure that what you guys are building is actually, kind of ahead or with the community and what's happening?
So there are trends and there are like new things. So trend is like for example, like the AI. So that's a sort of a long term trends that you need to keep investing. But there are also things that, for example, new kind of malware or maybe a new kind of ransomware that probably can fit into existing framework. So what we do product development is basically we develop a framework where we can deal with sort of a new kind of the same thing. So if you have a new kind of ransomware, can fit into the existing ransomware defense mechanism. But we on the longer term, we'll keep developing new frameworks to target emerging ways of new ways of attacks. So that's the sort of the long term and short term.
Yeah. Sure. So how do you manage your product roadmap with kind of what you just outlined? Like there's new, attacks and whatnot compared to feature requests that you're getting from your clients, because that's got to be really challenging.
It is. There's a lot of new things that need to be developed, and we try to balance the bigger trends that because those are the things that are important in the long run, and also the short term customer requirements. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so how do you work then with a company ongoing? Because you and I both know that like security is never really done, right? Like it's an ongoing thing. You're pushing updates and you're kind of always trying to be ahead of it, right? So walk me through, I get onboarded with a company, like what does my infrastructure look like 3, 6, 9, maybe 12 months or a couple years out after using kind of Hillstone Networks?
From a security standpoint, we do have some things that we think the security technology or security product is moving towards.
Okay.
And we will devise our product strategy according to that vision. And for example, a few years back, we think the AI is going to pick up, so that we actually started putting AI technology into the security products. Same with like cloud technologies. You see the IT, as I said, you see the IT is pushing us forward. IT technology is pushing us forward. The new kind of attacks are pushing us forward. So basically, those are sort of driving forces. So we are not really proactively doing new things, but we are more react to the new IT trends and the threat trends.
Okay. Can you give us some? Yeah, no, totally makes sense. Can you give us some examples of how you've been leveraging AI in the security space?
Okay. So I think the topic of AI is a pretty big one.
Totally.
So today, if you talk with security vendor, I think each one of them will tell you that they use AI in their products. I think it's very hard. I think today for a customer to come along and say, basically be able to tell which vendor's AI is better than some other vendor, is really to do the comparison, because there's no just like two kids. With kids, you have like IQs. You can say one is smarter than the other, and in technology today, I think there's no way, no easy way to tell that the IQ of two different kind of systems. So for us, we started to use AI technology about 8-9 years ago. So we there's a lot of potential for I should say, in security space. You're looking at all different kind of data, a lot of data. For example, you have user data, you have people using applications, you have all different kind of traffic, you have different kind of threats. So all those data, those are what AI technology are good with. But how do you use the AI is still an ongoing topic, ongoing research for security vendors. So we have been using AI in different areas. For example, to be able to tell whether domain name is good or bad. We can tell whether a new malware, whether it fits a specific behavior pattern of an existing family of malware, not by exact match, but look at the behaviors of them. So there's different engines that we build that actually utilize AI to help the security system to detect new malwares, and also to make sure that things are going according to where they should be. So I think it's an ongoing development. I think we are doing some interesting things in terms of helping people utilize AI in the products that help people really be more secure. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. So where do you think the security space goes from here? Because obviously there's like trends that come and go, and like there's blockchain and web 3.0, and arguably those are just kind of buzzwords of things that have, or iterations of things that we've had this whole time. Like, where do you see, or do you have any predictions of where the future of this stuff is? Because
Mhm.
it's like the internet was never really built with
Right.
security necessarily in mind, right? Like, and Google and them are saying they're going to build a better version, and it kind of goes somewhere and then nowhere. And like, do you have any predictions or thoughts on kind of the future of the security
Mhm.
space?
I think again, come back to my driving force. So basically, there's a few of the IT trends that are pretty obvious. First of
Sure.
it is cloud, right?
Yeah.
So cloud adoption is very widespread in US. It's starting to pick up in other countries even. So cloud security is still kind of in an early stage,
Interesting.
and the security model is different. On-prem, basically you buy your own security, and on the public cloud, for example, you depend a large part on Amazon to help you, right? So the model are shifting. The other trend is the mobile workforce. So you have more distributed workforce, and people are everywhere. And how do you deal with different kind of devices, different kind of user, and maybe different kind of security state that they are in. Some are maybe using their own computers, some are using company computers. So what do you deal with that? And the third most important, I would say, is the IoT. And I think we have been talking about industrial systems. We're talking about this internet objects a lot during the last few years. I think it's going to pick up in the next few years when the critical infrastructure security are becoming more important.
Sure. No, that makes sense. From a personal side, is there simple things or things that you recommend people do, whether it's on their, laptops or desktops or kind of phones?
I would say, for your safety, I think, my basic suggestion is, first of all, you have to be aware. Just like, most people nowadays are probably aware of, some phone scams,
Right.
but you have to have developed the same kind of knowledge with like the hacking, some of the common hacking mechanisms. So first be aware and avoid some common mistakes. Don't visit websites that are browser have flagged you as probably malicious. There are already software built into most of the OS that help you identify that. For example, Chrome will help you identify problematic websites. Windows also can come with antivirus. So have so basic security installed on your system, and don't do some commonly common mistakes. Avoid common mistakes.
Okay, sure. I'm curious then, you hear like obviously, and I've used VPNs all the time, but how important do you think it is to, kind of always be connected to a VPN, whether it's at home or obviously if you're out on public Wi-Fi, you should probably do it, or like, do you have some advice around that? Because I'm curious to get your thoughts as somebody in the space. Like, how important is running a VPN on my, personal machine when I'm at home and or outside of the home at somewhere, working in a coffee shop or co-working space?
If you're connected to corporate workspace, I think it's generally required that you're using VPN, because if you don't use VPN, all the traffic between you and the corporate is can be seen by anybody along the way.
Okay.
By like coffee shop operator, things like that. So in those circumstances, VPN is definitely needed. Some other usage for the VPN is like anonymizations, for example, to be able to hide you from the server. So in those circumstances, I would say it really depends on your usage, whether you want to be anonymized or not. So I generally don't use VPN for at least when I visit the US sites. I don't use VPN to visit, for example, Amazon or any public sites. I do use VPN to access my company network. Yeah.
Got you. Okay, interesting. That's good perspective. So I'm curious. We're kind of coming to the end, but I'm curious. Is there any other thoughts or advice that you would like to give listeners in the security space that are looking, to maybe get their business kind of more beefed up in security because of what's happening right now?
I would definitely advise them to be more knowledgeable, just like, you have to be aware of like the latest phone scams. You have to be aware of the latest internet scams as well. And just be vigilant and, keep learning, and you should be able to avoid most of mistakes.
Okay. No, I think that's really good advice. So how about we close the show with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself, Hillstone, and any other links you want to mention?
The company website is www.hillstonenet.com. There's a slew of information about the company, our products, and etc. You guys are welcome to send me any questions regarding to my personal email, which is timliu@ the company domain.
Perfect, Tim. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Thank you
you.
for having me.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com, and keep building the future.